Quilting friends, I've got a wonderful, easy, and organic, free-flowing quilting project for all of us to enjoy today. Are you ready? Let's get stitching. Well, welcome back everybody to another fantastic edition of Sew Well with Rob Appell. I'm your host from Stitchin Heaven out in Quitman, Texas. My name is Rob Appell. Check it out. We've got the Team Rob shirts, Carefree Quilter here. And don't forget, you can also get your Sew Well t-shirt as well. Follow the link in the description below and make sure you are subscribed to our wonderful YouTube channel. We are having a blast with all of our quilting community out there. Teaching, enjoying, fellowshipping, all of that kind of stuff here on YouTube. And today's a super fun and easy one. It's like beginnerish, easy friendly, although there's a lot of design involved. I don't even know what to call it. It's what we were calling freestyle quilting. It's not a collage, so to speak, because I'm not building a picture. It is all raw edge. It is super organic, super easy, and I'm actually just gonna glue a few pieces of batik down and walk you through all of the steps. But I wanna tell you a quick story because if you haven't seen some of our wonderful interview videos, recently I was able to interview a new fabric designer, mixed media artist, Seth Appell. He's with Free Spirit Fabrics, and he was showing his mixed media, his layer building of all of this different fiber and print and stamping and stitching, and it was really, really cool. I got very inspired by what Seth was doing, and so I made this little sample here, and then I thought, man, this is really a great technique. And then I was also at the International Quilt Museum and out in Lincoln, Nebraska, and there were these quilts, and I'm just dying right now. I'm forgetting the name of the display, but they were, again, like these wonderful pieces, small pieces of fabric, layered down, either raw edge or stitched, but they weren't lined up in like squares or rectangles or rows like we know as quilt makers. So it was very organically done. And then very large stitching, if you know the term sashiko, which is normally done with like white threads, big large embroidery stitches, Japanese style embroidery. It was done like that with all different colors. So we're gonna blend all that. We're gonna modernize it. We're gonna make it machine friendly. We're gonna use our scraps up. It's super fun, but I am actually working from a beautiful color set. And I guess that's one of the keys. The lesson has started, by the way. If you weren't totally paying attention, class has started. One of the keys to this is using a background that is going to be a bright, fun, positive, neutral for the color families. And for me, it's really easiest when I'm choosing something like this just to use something that is I want to say a pre-cut, something that is a group of fabrics. Often they come directly from a designer and they're great. These are 5-inch little tiles. You can see that they were pre-cut by the manufacturer. They've got the pinked edges. None of that's really going to matter on the size or anything like that. What I want you to understand though is we are using batik. Batik has got a heavier thread count, a denser fiber weave, so as we just raw edge these down on top of this purple background fabric, it's going to make for a less thready, longer, betterish, prettier. I'm looking for words today and I'm losing them, so let's get into the demo. First thing we actually are going to need to do, other than have some extra supplies around like some cardboard, a small ruler, some big scissors, a glue stick, that kind of thing, is I just want to prep out the scrap like I would do this, as I am going to really do this. So I have a roughly 24-inch piece by 44-inch piece, so technically 2/3 of a yard, and all I'm going to do to begin with is I'm just going to make sure I don't have anything underneath my fabrics, and I'm just going to come over here by using this straight edge along my folds. I've got a video out right now, several videos actually, on learning to quilt, on ruler management, cutting techniques, those kinds of things. So same thing I'm always talking about, nice clean straight edge here, clean edge there. Now, let's talk about design, folks, because right now this is a square, and that could be okay, but you will notice even on my wall here, these rectangular pieces, Maybe I wanted it to be a big rectangular piece. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to really want to determine our size, and we're going to want to work from there. And let me suggest to anyone that has never done anything like this to start small. It is more time consuming than you may think, and it will give you the opportunity to actually do more in less space, which will be more, and more will be better in this case. So at any rate, let's flip this over. I have another clean edge coming, and I want to now make a rectangle. I find rectangles are more pleasing artistically to me than squares for this kind of project. So let's cut this down to about it's probably going to turn out to about 18-ish or so wide there by about 22. So you're probably looking at about what looks like a fat quarter. I saved this. This could be really good binding later on. Should have maybe talked about considering that if you didn't know what you were doing there. And now we're just going to place our rulers and stuff out of the way. I've got a scrap of batting. I always save my excess cuts of batting for these kinds of projects and for practice quilt sandwiches and all of that kind of stuff. So now I'm just folding this open, and I'm going to use this fold right down here right now, and I'm just going to lay my batting in here. Make sure it's up to that edge. Okay, just making sure everything's nice. And I'm just going to now take this and fold it back over. So I've basically just built my quilt sandwich already. You may want to put a few pins in the corners to hold everything together, but I don't really consider that necessary. I'm going to use this right here to start working. Well, that's not true. I'm going to slide it slightly over because I do need to do some cuts. Now what I want to do is I want to make some random-ish but easy to work with sizes. So I'm going to take these 5-inch squares and I'm going to sort through first and make sure I've got a couple of different colors, especially the brighter ones, the ones that have the most impact. So I'm choosing these lavenders, these brighter blues, and then also you'll note these light ones have some nice contrast against there, and so will these yellows and pinks. So one of the things I should have pointed out is this purple one, I called it a positive neutral, meaning it was really beneficial to the color families that were being used, right? It's going to be something that's going to be super attractive. Now I'm going to cut my rotary cutting blade into aggressive. It's got a bigger cut there. I'm going to use a smaller ruler to just kind of protect my hands, but I'm going to make a couple of cuts that are not perfectly centered, okay? I still want them to look somewhat square. So now I'm cutting off these sections, and those actually can be some long rectangles. Now I'm going to rotate this down. I'm going to cut to myself. This is the piece I'm looking at right now. That will be a shape. And doing it again. Okay, so I basically have myself about 4 what look to be random shapes, a rotary cutter that seems to be stuck in dangerous mode. Hang on one second, I don't want to hurt anybody with this thing. There we go. Okay, now I have a piece of cardboard handy, just some lightweight cardboard. And as I bring parts of this over so you can see a little bit better, I'm also going to now take my glue stick, and I want to start with my darker fabrics and my larger fabrics, same fabric at the moment, and we're just going to take a little glue stick, and I'm literally, folks, I'm just holding with my fingers and I'm putting a couple of stripes of glue kind of down the middle of each of my pieces here, and then I'm just following this one right now as my example, and most of the pieces are somewhat linear, somewhat like we would imagine a quilt. So I'm going to use these straight edges right now, and I'm going to start to place with my glue, glue side down, folks, if that you're not really, glue side down. And then, so I'm going to stick that, and then I'm going to take this one over here, and I'm going to randomly stick that. Okay, and then I'm going to start working through my stacks of pieces fairly organically and quickly, trying not to line anything up in that exact same line, right? I want to start to get some really cool interchange going on with the different pieces. Very organic, just playing with. Oh, and I said not to line it up, and I just went about and lined it up. So again, think I want to now go ahead and move this all the way over here onto my ironing surface. Although because it's just glue, I'm just pressing down, yeah. You could do this, of course, with fusible web, but I've chosen not to use something like my Heat and Bond that I like so much because I don't really want this to get too heavy as I get multiple layers. In some of these spaces, I maybe have 5 and 6 layers where things have overlapped and crossed to get that color depth I'm looking for. So I really prefer this glue stick technique. You could use a little bit of your basting glue. You just need a little something to hold it, because as soon as I have my pieces as I want them, then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go into free motion mode, and I'm going to free motion on top of the entire sandwich. Remember, we now have our quilt back, we have our quilt batting, our top, and I want to make sure before I get started everything's nice and aligned, right, as I will, keeping also my pieces a little away from the edge because I will be trimming down. Then when I get over into the free motion mode, I'll put on my table here, and I'll be back to show you all this in today's video, but I also have a light purple thread because I want the background and the thread to work together today, because I've used more of a pastel, a little less poppy in color of a library. So this is what I'm going with, but I've intentionally matched the machine stitching thread to the fabric of the background and the applique pieces we're doing here, if you want to call these applique. I'm also going to recommend you use a 40 weight, possibly even up to a 30 weight, so that 30 is a thicker thread, not so easy for me to say. So the heavier the threads, the more of this traditional look we get out of this style of quilt. And so if you will allow me just a few moments, I will come back with more of my pieces consumed and designed up so I can show you what I mean with the free motion, because I'm not just going to go all over. I'm going to still go up and down, but being in free motion mode allows me to work around the loose edges of the pieces without any problem. And I'll show you a couple of tricks on that. So let me get you some more design work done. I'll be right back to show you what the quilt top looks like, and then we will get some stitching in here. Thanks, folks. I'll be right back. Okay, folks, now you can probably see that what I'm going to call phase one, round one is done. I've got a nice glue, hopefully glued down amount of my little batik squares and rectangles, and now I'm just going to slide it in under the machine, and I'm going to start to do some free motion real gently, and we're going to do this in multiple phases, folks. And the reason we want to do this in multiple phases is we want to be able to layer this down. So I'm coming down to the center of my project a little bit here. I am being very careful of the glue. About to the center, I don't want to knock any pieces over here. What I was starting to say before I got focused on my pieces here is what we really want to do is we want to run some base layers of thread, then we want to cut some more fabrics and do some more gluing. We're going to build this up in layers. It gives it so much character that way. So as we're getting ready to get started, we're just going to take a couple stitches here to lock our thread in place. And now I'm just kind of pushing through, and the reason we're in free motion versus in a standard stitch is it allows me to stop and push that under that hopping foot there so I can secure that edge. You notice I'm not worried about this edge here right now, just coming through. And the more lines of stitching we do, the more secure everything will become. We can come right off to the very edge. Remember, we're going to be trimming this, folks, so I can kind of come over here a few inches, maybe we'll call it an inch. Start to head back down. Did you see that starting to fold? So I can even kind of get my finger underneath there and then just bring it back down. This also gives you the opportunity by slowing your machine down and speeding your foot up. I think I want to have my stiletto handy too. Hang on one second here, folks. Easier coming forward than backwards, so have a little stiletto handy like that on the fly teaching. And this allows me to kind of give it that bigger stitch look if I want. Just watching out that we don't catch any of those edges coming through. So that would be the benefit of the fusible web, but it would just get so stiff. And we don't want that over time. So I think I'm going to do this though. Stick with me, folks. I think I'm building a trick on the fly here. I've only done a few of these, and the first few were more of a patchwork version. Okay, so now we're going to come over again, another inch, coming down, and it's obviously much easier coming than going with your free motion quilting. So let's just push this through here and kind of come on over to that other side. And don't be concerned, like in here where we're just stitching through the layers, between the layers, coming on over here now. And I'm going to actually zip over here past where we were before. And this is the trick I wanted to show you. Instead of trying to go backwards, folks, I'm in a good location. I'm going to go ahead and now just rotate the project, right? So I'm heading in an opposite direction than I just was, but you can see I was really struggling that first time with reverse because it was, whoa, hard to see where I was going. This is what we were trying to avoid right there. So just caught it in a nick of time. Slide that stiletto underneath there. Keep your eyes on the road at all times. Super fun and easy. And I'm just going to run, like in our other sample over here on the wall, all of my stitching right now is all just going what we're going to call vertically, just in the same direction, up and down, and just watching out, making sure that these edges are nice and secure. Clearing any threads that might be in your way. And again, now I'm coming over here, so I'd technically be backwards again, so I can just rotate. And so I guess we're dispelling a quilting rumor right now in front of everybody, live-ish on camera. You can always rotate your quilt as long as the machine is not moving and your needle is down. So I can come back around here. You notice that some of these pieces are getting a little ornery, but that glue is holding real nice. Not too worried about it, especially just long enough to get this thread through. So now I finished the rotation. I can start the machine up again. And like I said, just a little easier to see where I'm heading as I approach these pieces. And then it's nice to have like a stiletto or something that I can just ensure that front edge goes underneath. And we will be layering more pieces on top. So if you were to have a boo-boo, I guess that would be a real great place to start your next applique piece. Okay, now I want to point out that I have done some real easy, definitely non-pro style free motion quilting just to hold the first round of fabrics down. They're probably a good 1 inch to 3/4 of an inch apart. And what I'm also trying to tell you all is I don't want you to try to over quilt each layer because then it will become too dense and it'll lose a bit of the flow we're going for. That's why we weren't using the fusible web to begin with. So one of the things I like to do at this phase, now we know kind of the general size, let's take a moment, clear our workstation, and I am going to just literally free tidy off just the batting, just like this, and a little bit of that back fabric a little bit too, just because it's now going to start to make it easier for me to work and trim. And really, folks, if you've never heard me say this before, our quilts, our projects, and our fabric have they're affected and they're influenced by everything we see around it. So all of that extra white going away now allows me to focus on the purple, because what I'm going to now do in this next layer is go for a little bit more of a balance between the purple and the fabric pieces. So I'm going to go right back to this stash. Now that I've got a little more experience with my experiment, I know there's some colors, especially this darker purple and the pink, that are really making some nice impact. So I'm going to see if I can't find a couple more of those in my stash. And of course, I like those nice turquoise ones. I'll be cutting more rectangular and square shapes, no triangles. I don't want to throw a new design element in right now. We have plenty to look at. Maybe just one more of those lighter lavender pieces there. Okay, and then again, I'm just going to use a ruler to protect slightly different sizes. Okay, now we've got 3 pieces to work with, 3 size units to work with, and we'll go back in And using, again, always a cardboard or paper or something that we wouldn't want to get the glue all over our mat. Oh, and yeah, using our high impact colors and our dark colors, we're going to now start to layer again on top these wonderful new pieces. So right here, I've got a fairly open kind of light space. So I'm going to now work more as a designer. The first round was putting down a base layer. We'll call it the primer. It was just setting down some things with no real determination other than just making sure that I didn't put anything too similar next to each other, had some balance in my colors. But now I'm going to start to layer the pieces on top of each other. So that one, again, might even down the road get another final design element, which would be a bright with an on top and a bit of this overlap here. But I want to show that purple through. Okay. So like this section right here is getting pretty close to done. So then I'll like to have a lot of pieces handy, finding the ones I really am attracted to the most. And this is again why the glue stick is so terrific and easy for this one. Okay, now this one here, we're going to float into here. And I'll just keep doing this and doing this. And then I'll do another round of stitching. Oh, there it is. I'll do another round of stitching on top of this, and then one more last layer of applique pieces, but at that point mostly little small pieces, and then I'll switch to a golden thread at the very end as I'm finishing off all of the pieces, just to bring it all together, like a golden yellow thread or maybe a turquoise, something that gives me even more impact of the thread on the last round, the last color. So you can do as many as you want. What you're trying to do is not get it so thick in any one layer that all of that machine quilting overlaps too much and becomes too heavy. I don't like that there. And that was because there was too much yellow there. And I can see where I can use this effectively here better. And just piece by piece. I told you this would be incredibly fun and easy, low stress, low impact. And what I'd like to encourage you all to do as I'm getting ready to wrap this up is my email address, rob@stitchinheaven.com. You can send me photos directly to that email address. And I would be so blessed to see what all of you have done working in this style. So please send me those photographs of what you've been working on, and then maybe we can put them together and make a fun slideshow for one of our Friday live shows if you're not already tuned in. Doing a live Friday, kind of a weekly review, having some fun, doing a grateful list, those kinds of things Friday live, most Fridays anyways. So if you'd like to join us for that here on YouTube as well, and I think I'm gonna get myself really dived in. That was dive into the design, dived into this the final design. And as I'm wrapping it up, I promise to put a picture up here at the end of the video. Again, folks, thank you all for being here. I hope you love the way this turned out. Make sure you send me photos, rob@stitchinheaven.com, so I can see what you've done along this style, whether you're working in like a crazy pastel, these deep, rich, earthy tones, or your favorite palette as well. Thanks again for being here, folks. I hope you enjoyed today's video. We'll see you next week with another terrific tutorial. Until then, please stay well. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. It really helps support our channel. If you haven't subscribed, do so now. Hit the little button to be notified every time we go live or do a new video for all of you. And here's one from the past I think you'll really enjoy.